I was muted. Okay, let's try that again. Good day, everyone. Welcome to our live event. We are all really excited to be here today. And Chris, let me say that Kenny, I'm sorry if I mess up your name, Oladipo. He says that
Let's try that again.
Chris,
Good
he,
day,
whoops.
everyone. Welcome to
Oh, sorry. Okay, here we go. Failure patterning again. Okay. Chris, he said that you taught him RCM at SLB.
Yeah, well, that would be Schlumberger. Yeah, that's what we call it. Yeah.
Excellent. So, Kenny, thank you for
Yeah.
being here with us. And let's see. Okay, Martins, Edet, Christoph, hello, welcome. So, put in the chat where you're watching us from. We'd be delighted to know. And in the meantime, welcome again, everyone. We're delighted to be here. We're here to share a big announcement today. We've been collaborating for some time about something when it comes to reliability-centered maintenance. And Mark and Chris and Jesus and Graham and I, we've been working hard. What we want to do is help you to stand out from all the rest, to help you validate your skills when it comes to reliability-centered maintenance, and to show that you understand what reliability-centered maintenance is in accordance with the international standard SAE JA 1011. I'm just going to pause for a second. I think we've got some background noise. Let me see. No, okay, hold on one second. Welcome to a live event. Okay, I think I got it done. All right, so the cat's out of the bag. We are all about reliability-centered maintenance certification. And so what I'd like to do before we get started is to just quickly introduce ourselves to you in case you don't know all of us. We've got Mark Horton. And Mark, just raise your hand. I don't see our names on there. Oh, because I've got the wrong view on. There we go. Oh, look at me go. No, I don't see our names on there. Well, anyway, Mark, just wave your hand. All right. We've got Mark Horton, and Mark has been helping people implement reliability-centered maintenance since 1991. He worked very closely and was involved in the development of the UK's Royal Navy RCM capability and their RCM-based maintenance system. He is the originator of RCM, RCS, reliability-centered maintenance, reliability-centered spares. If you've heard of that term, it originated with Mark, and Mark is also one of the original architects of the failure finding calculations that we use in reliability-centered maintenance to take care of our protective devices. And on a personal note, may I say that Mark is, well, he's a genius, in my opinion, when it comes to failure finding, and he has always been very generous with his time and his knowledge with me. So, Mark, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Chris. Chris. Yep, there we go. There's Chris. So Chris has been doing RCM for 25 years. He worked for 11 years with the late John Mowbray and helped to develop much of the material that you see in the RCM2 book. Chris has also developed training courses on CBM or condition-based maintenance. So not just about the techniques, the various techniques that can be used, but to evaluate if you've got one failure mode that you maybe could manage with 2 or 3 different CBM techniques. He also has created training materials to help you figure out which one would be the best one. There we go. All right. Jesus, would you give a little wave? Okay, thank you, Jesus. Jesus has been in reliability since 1994. He is the author of Reliability-Centered Maintenance Re-Engineered. And amongst his specific areas of expertise when it comes to reliability-centered maintenance is manufacturing, and more specifically, pharmaceuticals. Now, Jesus brings something very significant to our team, and that is that he's fluent in Spanish and Portuguese. So we have a very exciting announcement at the end of our live. When it comes to RCM certification, it's not just going to be in English. So thank you for that, Jesus. All right, and now let's see Graham. Graham, just give a little wave. Okay. Graham's been doing reliability-centered maintenance since 1993. He worked very heavily in RCM implementation in not only a military environment, but a civilian environment, and domestically in the UK, but also internationally. He played a significant role in the creation of the UK's Naval Engineering Standard, NES 45, and Graham is my go-to person when I have questions about applying reliability-centered maintenance to electronics. Now, there's a misconception out there that, reliability-centered maintenance isn't good for electronics, but actually, our electronics need to be taken care of just like the rest of our equipment, and Graham is going to give us the 411, as my sister says. In the United States, we dial 411 for information, so my sister always calls me and says, "Hey, sissy, what's the 411 on so-and-so?" So Graham's going to give us the 411 on RCM and electronics. Okay, so stay with us until the end, because we've got not only are we just announcing RCM certification, but we've got a little surprise for you at the end in a little while. We won't make you wait till the bitter end. Okay, so there we go. So we are the IRCC, the International Reliability Centered Maintenance Certification Committee. We are making our debut today, I guess, so to speak. Let me just go into the chat and see if we've got any questions, or to see where people are listening from. And yes, just another note, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat, and we will do our best to answer them all in the time we have today. Okay, Andy, Gailey, thank you for joining us. Hey, Ed Buton, it's great to see you. Buddy from Savannah, Sam from Huntsville. Hey, Sam. Gosh, you're right around the corner from me. Christoph from Germany, Kenny from Houston, Stephen from Gainesville. Okay, Vishnu Varaman. Oh my gosh, from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. That's a big time change. It's afternoon in South Africa. Thank you, Johan. Kashif from Saudi Arabia. Andy from the UK. Cincinnati, Ohio is in the house. Lath. Oh my gosh, all of these people. This is incredible. Thank you so much. All right, now I'm just having a look for some questions. Oh, Alicia from Brazil. Christoph, he says he's the CEO from Menger Technology. Their main focus is on technical documentation and consulting services and maintenance. Then this is the live for you, Christoph. Thank you so much. Hi, Doug. Okay. England. All right. Lee, hello. All right. Oh, obrigado, Alicia. Obrigado. All right. That's you, Jesus. That's Portuguese, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Woohoo. That's about the extent of my Portuguese. Okay. So, hey, Doug from Florida. Good morning, Todd. Thank you for joining us, Todd Bear. Okay, so let's get right into it. That's enough of my banter anyway. Okay, what I would like to do is turn this over to Mark Horton. And because one of the biggest questions of the day is, let me get it up here, is why is RCM certification important? Whoops, sorry about that, Mark. There we go. Okay, Mark, so why is RCM certification important?
Okay, well, I suppose you could start by really telling the story of RCM here, because it was over 40 years ago that the civil aviation industry discovered a really uncomfortable truth, because only a tiny proportion of equipment failures happened because their components were getting too old. Now, that was really uncomfortable for them, because the core of their maintenance policy was about working out how long equipment would last and then overhauling or replacing the components before they got too old. Well, the reality was they discovered more than 80% of failures just happened at random. And a lot of those happened soon after installation or after maintenance. It meant that most of their maintenance was either useless or is actually positively harmful. Now, what do you do if you can't prevent components from failing? Well, a lot of them give you warning signs. Bearings vibrate, structures corrode, the pressure across a filter starts to increase as it blocks. And instead of trying to guess a bearing's lifetime, well, you can just look for vibration and use that as a warning to change the bearing before it finally gives out. You can look for signs of rust on a metal structure, and you could look at the differential pressure across a filter to tell you that it's going to be time to change it soon. Even if there aren't any warning signs, there are other options. You can check alarms and trips to see if they failed, and systems can be redesigned with backup or redundancy so that failure doesn't matter, or the consequences at least are less serious. You know, all of that is just common sense. And with all these options, how do you choose the right maintenance task? Well, here's where the real genius and magic of RCM comes in. It's that if you're going to do a maintenance task, it just has to meet two really simple conditions. It's got to be applicable, or as we usually say now, technically feasible, and it has to be effective or worth doing. If it's applicable, it means you manage the failure. You can actually track that failure. You can prevent it or predict it in some way. And if it's worth doing, it just means it manages the consequences. The consequences of failure are eliminated, or at least they're lowered. So here's a stepper motor controller I just pulled out. There's no point in me replacing this circuit board every few years because of its age, because just about everything on here fails at random. That task wouldn't be technically feasible. It couldn't, and it wouldn't tackle almost all the failures on this board. In the same way, using an expensive oil lab might not be worthwhile for a really simple, small gearbox, because it could cost you a whole lot more than just letting the unit fail or changing the oil. It really wouldn't be worth doing. Now, here's one of my favorite books that Stan Nolan and Howard Heap published in 1978. It's called Reliability Centered Maintenance. This one's not so well thumbed, but I've got another copy that's falling to pieces. And what this tells you is that you can select your maintenance tasks by first listing the functions, functional failures, and writing down then the ways the equipment can fail and how it matters when each failure occurs. Then for every failure, the RCM decision diagram, and that's where this usually falls open, the RCM decision diagram here will tell you, by applying those really simple principles of technically feasible and worth doing, to select the maintenance tasks you need. RCM gives you that set of maintenance tasks that are going to tackle your equipment failures, but they don't waste your money on maintenance that isn't going to work, or even worse, is actually going to cause you problems. Now, since RCM was developed and published in this book 40 years ago, it's been adapted and it's been changed in a lot of different ways since then. That's why those SAE standards, JA 1011 and JA 1012, at the end of the 1990s, was so important to make sure that everyone was reading from at least something like the same book. Everybody understood what RCM really was. But you know, there's another issue here. If RCM is common sense, well, you might wonder if that means that anybody can do it. Well, you might want to think about this, because I read a few articles on coronary bypass surgery, and you know, that's common sense too. But you might want to be a little bit better off with a real surgeon rather than letting me loose with a scalpel on your chest. And in that vein, to look at what happens when RCM goes wrong, we've got a few stories here on what can happen when this process doesn't do what it can do and really transform your business, but for quite often human reasons, doesn't deliver what it should do. And I'll just hand back to Nancy first.
Mark, thank you. And thank you for that introduction also to reliability-centered maintenance. Mark, I've never seen the actual published book. Can you hold that up again? I only have
sure.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a treasure.
It's a lot of reading.
Oh, I love it.
John Mowbray used to have a copy that was signed by Stan Nolan. It was one of his biggest treasures. And I don't think I ever saw him quite as furious as the day he realized he'd lent it to someone and never got it back.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, rats. Mark, thank you for that. Chris, would you share your thoughts with us about why RCM certification is important?
Okay, yeah. So So I'd say that certification is important because it means you've demonstrated competence and understanding of a particular subject to a recognized standard. And as Mark said, in the case of RCM, the main international standard now that's most widely recognized is the SAE standard, Society of Automotive Engineers standard JA 1011. And the intention of the standard is to evaluate any process that claims to be RCM to determine whether it's a true RCM process, whether it's a true reflection of the original Nolan and Heat report that Mark showed. And the need for such a standard became clear to me, I would say, about 25 years ago, actually. I did an RCM project on a new refinery in Thailand. The client wanted to do RCM, and they requested lots of proposals from consultants, and consultants responded with their proposals that they called RCM, with lots of processes that they called RCM, but they were a very wide range of processes. And some were type of root cause analysis. There was another that looked a bit like a fault tree analysis, and very few of these processes, even though they were called RCM, were actually bore any resemblance to the RCM that I'd been taught by John Mowbray 5 years earlier. And so this certainly caused confusion amongst the client, and which probably reflected the wider confusion in the marketplace. And it was a result of such confusion, I think, that the standard was developed. And I have a copy of the standard here. It's much smaller than the Nolan and Heat report that Mark showed, much briefer. And I think that's one of the notable things about it. You don't get a lot of standard for your money. You don't get a lot of words for your money. But I would say that that's actually a good thing, because it's very clear, it's very concise, and it's very to the point. And I think that shows a lot of thought and consideration has gone into the development of this standard. It would have been much easier for them to have written a much longer, ambiguous, complicated, and confusing standard, whereas this is beautifully written and it's nice and clear and concise. And there's also associated with the standard, of course, a guide. JA 1012 is a guide that explains the key points of this standard and provides guidance to the successful application of this standard. So why am I telling all this? Well, the reason for telling you is that the IRCC certification questions that we ask are based on this standard. And so if you meet the certification requirements, then it demonstrates that you have achieved a high level of understanding through RCM process as described in the main international standard.
Chris, thank you for that. And Kashif made a comment, or it's a question. He's asking to elaborate that this certification is helpful for beginners in RCM. That's a great question, because it's not just, especially what we're going to talk about, what Mark's going to talk about soon is about level 1, that it's not just for people who have been doing RCM for some time. Chris, do you want to talk about that as to why it could be helpful for even beginners and who have an introductory knowledge to RCM?
Yeah, well, that's why we have three different. We're starting with level 1, but there will be further levels of certification. So level 1 is intended as an introductory understanding. It's the sort of thing that you would require if you're going to be a member of an RCM review group. So that's where we're starting, and that's where you should start. But it's an introductory level knowledge. That's the first step. So we will have these different levels as you'll see later.
Great, thank you. And Graham, let me tell you, you've got a shout out from Stephen Carroll, ex-Royal Fleet Auxiliary and now Oil and Gas Offshore Chief Engineer. So right. Shout out to you, thank Graham. You. Okay. Oh, Safiuddin is joining us from Saudi Arabia. Sanya Mathura, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, I think there was another question. Let me just see before we go on. And Jesus, we're both getting a shout out from Gilson Schofield. I think Gilson is one. Yes.
Meu amigo de Brasil.
Yes, excellent. Okay, so excellent. So that brings us to you, Jesus. I think that,
You know what?
a-
You know what? Gilson is certified. He's one of the guys that's certified with IRCC. So congrats to Gilson, and I'm really glad to see him here. Go ahead.
excellent, excellent. Congratulations. So it's Gilson. I was saying Gilson. Gilson. So this is the perfect time to now talk about, RCM, reliability centered maintenance, often gets a bad rap, right? It doesn't work. It takes too long. You don't get the results that you need from it. And I know that we could all talk for days to say that's absolutely not true. And usually, if you don't get the results you want from RCM, it is often because RCM was not done correctly with the right people. So, Jesus, would you talk to us about some of the most common pitfalls about reliability-centered maintenance and how certification can help organizations avoid those pitfalls?
Sure, sure, and I'll be very happy to do so. So, what triggered our RCM practice many years back, or our RCM teaching, was exactly that. So we did some audits to companies in the manufacturing industry because they were like complaining that they were not getting optimal results from RCM, and we wonder why. If you know that RCM is the better tool for developing management policies for faults, for failures, so we say why they are not getting those results. And when we dig into the reasons, we end up seeing some kind of common denominators, right? One of them was not using the right people to do the facilitation. So some people said, well, I read a book, I am studying on my own, and now I'm facilitating RCM. So that was one of the pitfalls. Second one was due to that lack of practice. So failure modes were not developed well. So we were getting like failure mode, poor failure mode causation. So too vague type of statements for failure modes. And we all know that if we don't have a clear failure mode, we will never get a task appropriated, to reducing the effects to lower levels, to tolerable levels. And also streamlined processes. People wanted to do RCM in some way that it was so streamlined that you will kind of skipping very important steps. You have to answer the 7 questions. There is no way of doing RCM differently. So we need to consider everything, skipping the operating context, just going straight to answering, the functions. So there is something that is stated clearly in the standard. That is that before answering your functional, statement, you have to understand the operating context very, very well. So also, skipping some important things like secondary functions, like let's skip the protected devices for later. No, that is not exactly RCM. And one of the purposes of this group, I'm very excited to belong to here, is that we want to be sure that everybody understands the standard, and we do RCM by the standard. No matter in which language, Espanol, Portuguese, French, you have to do it by the standard. And we want to make sure that through our exams, we test your knowledge, we test your skills, and we be confident that when you get certified here, you can practice at the specific level. If you just got the first level exam, level 1, you will be a good analyst. You will be ready to help facilitators. You will be able to identify good failure modes and do some effective analysis. And if you certify as a facilitator, you have all the competencies needed for that. That's all that we want to ensure. So to make sure that you are ready for that. So yes, we want those pitfalls to be erased, to be out of the question. So we all know how to apply RCM in any language, in any country, everywhere we do it the same way.
Thank you, Jesus, and I love that the language analogy resonates with me because really RCM has its own language. I think Chris, is it John Mowbray who said, someone said that. I think it was John, that RCM has its own language, and so it's very important that if we're applying reliability-centered maintenance, that everyone who's part of that team understands that language, because it would be the equivalent of you trying to speak Portuguese to me right now. I wouldn't understand. So really, when it comes to the basics of maintenance and reliability, it's a very similar issue. Thank you for that, Jesus. There was, someone made a comment here, Lucas. Lucas, thank you so much. Lucas says, very cool. This will be a fantastic means of baselining expectations for both practitioners and managers in RCM. Thank you, Lucas, because that's one of the main reasons why we're doing this. There are a lot of different flavors, so to speak, of reliability-centered maintenance out there, but we want to make it clear we're not advocating any particular brand or type of RCM. It's strictly in accordance with SAEJ 1011, just true RCM principles. Christoph says in Germany, RCM unfortunately only plays a very minor role because people are afraid of the high costs of implementation. Interventions in the organization also play a major role. Christoph, you are not alone. We all hear that very often. And, like Mark mentioned, RCM's over 40 years old, but in many ways it's still, with respect to implementation, it's still in the very early stages because a lot of organizations still need to get on board with it. So you're not alone, and thank you for joining us. And hopefully what we're doing here can help all of you if you are endeavoring to apply RCM, because I know if you're on this live, then you're probably in the same mindset as us, and maybe one of the problems you may have is getting buy-in from the people in your organization to move forward. So hopefully this can help you. Kenny is asking about Facilitator 3 training, and I think, Mark, you're going to get to that in a little while, right?
Yep, yeah, it won't be very long. We're going
Okay.
through the website, yep.
Okay, great. Ian is joining us from Indonesia, and he says, I just missed it. He says he is applying reliability-centered maintenance for their gas turbine. That's awesome. Good for you. Razvan says it's not easy to find people to engage just if they're motivated with extra money and further investment in their education. Yeah, we're all about reliability, right? Getting the reliability that we need. Okay, let's see. We've got a question. We've got a couple of questions, but we'll come back to those because before we get off of the pitfalls, I want to come to Graham, because Graham, I know you've shared it with us in the past, and you've got a pretty significant story when it comes to RCM pitfalls. Would you share that with us?
Yeah, sure. This concerns some work done on a major warship class. It must have been late 1990s. Our engineering standard had been in place for 4 or 5 years, and it was decided this particular warship class would be procured with a maintenance strategy that had been put together using RCM principles. Now the shipbuilder didn't have the capacity to do all of that, so they brought in a lot of contractors to do it. One could guess as to how good that approach was. Mark, you mentioned about RCM being common sense, but it's formalized common sense, and it's really getting the formalism across. The formalism was woefully lacking at the time, and the analysis, this is right across the whole warship platform, was pitched at far too low a level. In the mistaken belief that you do RCM at the level at which maintenance is carried out. Anyway, the upshot of all of that was that when the maintenance package was put together and they totted up the numbers, it turned out that ship staff, who were going to have to do a lot of this maintenance, were actually outnumbered to the tune of anywhere from 4 to 20 times. So capacity was the capacity wasn't there. Sorry, I've mixed that one up a bit. But the point was that the amount of maintenance that was being issued was way in excess of the ability of the ship staff to do it, which really meant that the whole platform had to be analyzed once it was into service, and it was an extremely embarrassing situation. Anyway, so it was done, and it was done at public expense too, which personally I think was a mistake. I think we should have gone back to the originators, but that's a private view. So yeah, getting it wrong can be extremely expensive. So we need a method of making sure that we get it right, and making sure that everyone who does it knows how to do it right. That's what this is all about, really, isn't it?
Absolutely. That's exactly what we're all about. Thank you for that, Graham. Stephen Carroll has a question. It's an excellent question. And in the chat, Jim Picknell, hello, Jim. Thank you for joining us. He answered a little bit, but maybe one of you want to jump in with some more information. Stephen says he's a big fan of RCM. Excellent. Thank you, Stephen. He says original equipment manufacturers may reject warranty claims if the OEM maintenance is not followed. And how do we resolve this issue? Jim Picknell chatted that, the warranty doesn't last forever, so to speak, but, reliability-centered maintenance is a long-term issue. But do any of you have something more to add about, warranty claims and RCM?
I have just
Jesus?
one
ahead.
comment. Warranties cover just labor sometimes and parts replacement. But what about downtime? I had that argument when I worked as a reliability engineer for the pharma industry back in the 90s. So some equipment manufacturer told me, you can't touch my equipment. I said, no, it is not your equipment, it's mine. And it is 20 years old already. So there is no warranty here. And also, if you are going to pay me all the downtime that I'm experiencing, I won't touch it. Are you up for paying millions of dollars in downtime because your equipment is failing and you don't let me do anything? So we have to see if that's worth doing. We need to see what kind of risks we're getting. So there is a lot to evaluate, and there is not a straightforward answer to that, but it is all about risk. And at some point, warranty might not mean anything. It was just a question based on an experience that I had in the 90s.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Paul Hamilton, you have a specific question about your certification. If you go to rcmcertification.org and you can send us a question specifically for that, and we can answer that question one-on-one with you. Let me see. There were a couple of other things in the chat. Let me just have a quick look. Okay, Johan says, one of the challenges is that although RCM might have its own language, many don't even understand the basic language. 100%. And, what I often say is, even if you never apply RCM, people learning about RCM can only help because it teaches them not just the language of reliability, but like Mark was talking about, how do you, to do a scheduled replacement task on a random failure technically doesn't make any sense. That's part of the language and part of the formalized common sense that Graham mentioned. So excellent. Okay, Lucas says now we're talking RCM and complex ship design. Graham, you've got all kinds of fans out there. I don't know, for lack of a better word. Thank you, Lucas, for that.
Yes. Hi all.
Okay, let's see. Okay, So now, why don't we switch? And I'm going to switch our view here, Mark. And Mark, I'd like, if you wouldn't mind, would you talk about, maybe share our website and show people around the website and talk about the different levels of certification that we're offering and the one that we're offering right now, which of course is level 1.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you, Nancy. And I just want to check, yeah, okay, the screen share is coming through. This is our website. It's at rcmcertification.org. That's all one word, rcmcertification.org. And here you can get more information about the exam process, about certification, and a couple of other things that we'll come back to later. And if you miss us after this live session, there are photographs of each of us there as well, so you can pin those up on your wall. Okay, the first things first, the level 1 exam, as Nancy has said, is what is available now. That's intended to be certification for people who have, for example, done some sort of RCM introductory training and are going to be a member of an RCM group. So it means that someone has enough RCM knowledge, they understand the language well enough that they can form part of an RCM group and contribute to it, and that they're going to understand what's said, and they're not going to have to be coached as you go through the RCM process. We'll come back to the other levels in just a moment, but this is all about looking at how you get your level 1 certification. For those of you who desperately want to be level 2 or level 3, hold on a moment. If you're looking for level 1 certification, you can go to our website and just hit the button that says get RCM level 1 certification now. And you can take this exam online. So it's just going to ask you for an email address, password to set up an account on the system, and then it's going to cost, the full price on this is $99. Nancy will have something to announce on the discounts for a limited time on that. Pay by card, and then you're ready to go. So what are you going to face? Well, you're going to face an online exam. It's got 30 questions, and it's going to take a maximum of 30 minutes. Most people finish it in less than that, but you've got 30 minutes to do it. The pass mark's quite high. The pass mark's at 80%. But if at the end of this, you'll get an immediate feedback on whether you passed or failed. And if you pass, you will be awarded a certificate that looks just like this one, except with your own name and your own details on it. So that's how you get level 1 certified. I'm not going to go through this process now, partly because I'm feeling a bit tight and I don't want to spend my $99, but also because it's going to be so devastatingly embarrassing if I don't pass. So I'm not doing that in front of you guys at the moment. So here we are back on the main page of the website, and let's just look at the levels of certification here. Level 1, as I just said, that's all about people who are going to form part of an RCM group doing an analysis led by a facilitator. So you understand the RCM process through functions, functional failures, failure modes, through to the process of task selection. And you can be immediately a productive member of that RCM team without someone having to provide you with more coaching. That exam's available now, but coming soon. I don't want to say too much about this because we'll have nothing to talk about in the future live session on this one, is the level 2 certification for facilitators. So if you're facilitating an RCM group or you intend to, this is probably the level for you, although you might want to look at level 1 first. At level 2, you've got the skills of a good RCM facilitator. You know RCM back to front. You can apply it. You can tell when someone's not got the right ideas about and isn't talking the same language as you. And you can lead an RCM team to produce a safe and cost-effective RCM analysis. Now, I'll just give you a hint of what's involved in the level 2 certification, because we've had a few people through this process already, sort of secretly to test it out. It is a much more in-depth online exam, and you have to pass that first before you can go any further. So that's part 1 of the process. Part 2 is so much worse because you are allocated an IRCC examiner who looks at a couple of things, but he or she is going to be looking for you to produce an RCM analysis that you facilitated. You're going to have to present that, and then you're going to go through an interview process of defending the analysis and of being asked questions about the RCM process and about facilitation. A much more in-depth process. That's coming soon. And the people who've been through it seem to think it really was worth it. But, an achievement to get there. And at the end of that, again, you get a pass or fail, and you get a level 2 certificate for that. Level 3, I'm not going to say too much about this at the moment. At level 3, we're looking at people who are RCM leaders. So they're what might be called an RCM practitioner. They train, they help companies implement RCM, they mentor other people. And to do this, you need to demonstrate that you can pass your skills on to other people, either through formal training or through a mentoring process where you coach one-to-one. So this is a much more detailed process, but you're going to be set up to be the leader in RCM in your organization. So those are the 3 levels. If you want to know more about this, the way to do it is to, I'll come back to the 50% off in a moment, is to go to the RCM certification page here. And there are some frequently asked questions that will probably help you a lot if you're thinking of taking these exams. Like, what do you need to do before you take the exam? What are you expecting? What's involved in this? Almost what's the syllabus for it? The fees, how to register for level 1 certification, and how you're going to get your results. So take a look down those. And again, there's details here for what's behind the RCM level 2 and what you need to do to prepare for it. We don't want people to take this if they're not prepared for it. We're not here to collect the $99. We're here to make sure that people who say that they can do RCM really can do it, and in a safe and reliable way. So with that, unless anyone's got any questions, or unless Nancy, if I've forgotten anything, then I'll pass you back to Nancy, and we'll look at some more of the questions that people have sent through.
Okay, yeah, but Mark, maybe because I was a little premature, but it was maybe because I'm excited. Maybe you can go back to the purchase page, and maybe we can announce that what we have for the next 2 weeks is we're offering 50% off of your level 1 RCM certification. So all you have to do is use coupon code RCM50, and it will reduce the price by 50%. So you just type in that coupon code RCM50 there, click on apply coupon, and there you go. It's half off. So we're offering that for the next 2 weeks. So thank you for that, Mark.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we do have some more questions in the chat, but we did have some questions that were emailed to us from people who couldn't be on the live. So I thought maybe we can break away and talk about those real quickly. And let's see, the first one is, and Chris, would you answer this one? Are there any mandatory training requirements for level 1 RCM certification? And this is also a question that was in the chat, a similar question about, what are the requirements, and is there a way I have to show I learned RCM to take the exam?
Yeah, it's very relevant and important question, I think. And the answer is no, there isn't. The certification is really a certificate that shows what you know, and it doesn't prescribe how you obtained what you know. So yeah, it's a certificate, yeah, just of your competence rather than anything about how to obtain that competence. If you got it in your sleep and you passed the exam, well done.
Good.
Wish I could do that. So, and if you think about it, that's actually a much more useful certificate that demonstrates, that you've your knowledge really than a certificate that you might get on some other training courses, which simply are certificates of attendance, because you could actually sit there and be playing on your phone or not even concentrating at all, but you'll get a certificate because you've actually been there, whereas this is actually a certificate of competence, which I think is much more relevant and much more important. So the answer is no, there are no mandatory training requirements, no.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Jesus, I think this question is probably best for you, and that is, will the Level 1 RCM certification exam be available in other languages?
Well, I can answer that question for 2 other languages, maybe for 3. Je parle français aussi. I can speak a little bit of French too, so maybe, but let's speak for Spanish, Español, and Portuguese. So we are going to have the exam ready during the second semester, during the second quarter. So we want to make sure, since there are many varieties of Spanish, we have Spanish everywhere in the Americas and also in Europe, we want to come up with a common language, with a neutral type of language. So we are testing with a couple of fellows from different places. So we are sure that we are comfortable with the Spanish language. We also have some fellows helping us with the Portuguese translation. So we make sure that everybody feels comfortable with the language. But during the second quarter, before the end of the quarter, we will have it live. And we have gotten some Spanish and Portuguese speakers who speak English as their second language, also taking the exam in English. And if you are fluent enough or you understand English well, and you understand the RCM language, you are also encouraged to take the exam in English if you can do it. So I want to abound a bit on Chris' answer to the exam. So if you can take the exam if you don't have any class, but make sure that you understand the RCM language. If you don't understand the concepts, you won't pass the exam for sure. So make sure that you have the competences, that you have the knowledge. And if you dare to take the exam without any class, you're welcome, right? But make sure that you understand RCM.
Okay, great. Thank you. And let me mention that with this coupon code, if you're going to take an RCM course here in the next month or so, or if you are interested, if you are primarily Spanish or Portuguese, if that is your first language and you want to take advantage of our 50% off, we will honor that coupon code for a couple of months, especially for Portuguese and the Spanish version of the exam. So don't be concerned about that. You can go ahead and you can purchase that coupon code, and you can purchase it, but don't take the exam yet. And that's another note is, if you do take the exam and you need to take it again, maybe you didn't quite get 80%, there's just a certain amount of time in between times where you can take that exam. But don't stress out about buying the 50% off now, because we will honor it for you. Okay, let's see. Mark, we've got another one that I wrote down that someone emailed in, and I thought it would be nice if you could answer this for us. Wait a minute, I'm just looking to find it. Here, okay. You covered it, Mark, but for maybe if there's anyone out there who was not on the live at the moment, would you just show us one more time, Mark,
Yeah, sure.
how to register?
Yeah, no problem. So registering for the exam is really easy. Make sure you've got that coupon code with you. Go to rcmcertification.org, all one word, and then click on any of these buttons. There are quite a few of them that say Get Level 1 Certification. Put in your email address. Create a new password, because this will create an account on the website so you can take the exam at some point in the future if you need to. Your name, address, and that'll go on the certificate, and country. And then don't forget to put in the coupon code here. I just have to click it again, apply the coupon, and then pay by card after you've accepted the terms and conditions. So it really is that easy. And then you'll be taken through the exam itself after a couple more screens. And then at the end, you'll get the results. And if you've passed, you can get a certificate like this one. And it'll have your own name and you're level 1 certified. So that's how you do it. Actually, Nancy, while we're here, there was something else that I forgot first time, if I can squeeze it in.
Yeah,
And that
go
is,
ahead.
don't forget to look at the blog here as well. We're not just about telling you how fantastic it is to be certified here. We're really putting in the things that have occurred to us about RCM. You know, we've all got this store of stories we've had over the years of RCM in particular areas, or ways it's gone right, or ways it's gone wrong. And there are sometimes just nuggets you can bring out of there. They're just the right length for a blog. So we're going to be putting more material in here as time goes on. Take a look back at this. And if you want to and see when something new is coming, go down to the bottom of the screen, put in your name and your email address, and click Get Latest Updates. We won't flood you, won't give you a tsunami of email telling you to do something with IRCC every couple of days. But you will hear from us when something new happens, and so you can see that first. Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Nan.
thank you, Mark. And okay, Buddy asks the question, is there anything he can read or study before taking the level 1 certification test? And Buddy says he doesn't like taking tests. Nightmare from college. Buddy, I am totally with you.
Yeah.
I hate taking tests. But anyway, just generally speaking, you know, we don't say you have to learn RCM a particular way, but just make sure the course you take or however you learn RCM, just make sure that source is compliant with SAEJ 1011. Mm-hmm. Let me see. I know we're coming up on an hour now, and we have a lot of other questions in the chat. We'll do one or two more, but what we will do is just come back again and come live. We'll go through the chat and record the questions we didn't get to ask again, and that will be a great opportunity for us to come back and share some more with you. So let me see. There's a lot about OEM and equipment manufacturers' recommendations. So we'll definitely have that as a topic of another live, because it seems to be a hot topic, and there's a lot to say about that. So we'll save that for our next time. And let me see. Okay. All right. So let's see. Mark, Graham, Chris, Jesus, do you guys have any last thoughts? One thing I will tell you, Stephen Carroll just put a question in. To be competent in RCM, I think it's critical, like everything else, to get experience in doing them. How can we get involved with a real RCM study without having to leave our primary occupation? Stephen, that's an excellent question, and I think that in more detail we could answer that in our next live, but if I could just make one thing clear, for level 1 certification, the level at which we test that competency is an introductory knowledge of reliability-centered maintenance. So to take level 1 certification, you don't have to have necessarily applied it. It just shows that you're competent and you understand what it is. Does anyone, Jesus, do you have something else to say about that?
No, that's right. I'm totally agree with you. So you just shows your skills. You understand what RCM is, and you are ready for participating in an analysis as an analyst to help the group identify failure modes, identify failure effects, and that's it. That you are ready to go.
Yes, excellent. Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. Any final thoughts or Any other final thoughts before we sign off? We're coming up on 1 hour.
Actually, there's one question in here that's just going past from James Ray's Picknell.
Okay.
Which is, if someone believes they're level 2 or 3, do they need to do level 1 first? That's a really good question. And I think it's an it depends. Yeah, if you've got a lot of experience as a facilitator, you've been doing this for years, probably level 1 isn't where you're going to want to go first. But if you're a relatively new facilitator, actually, you might want to just test your knowledge, formally against level 1 to make sure that you've calibrated yourself for your RCM knowledge. I don't know whether everybody else would agree with that, but it's kind of what I was thinking in terms of, do you go straight to level 2 or level 1? If you're at level 3 and you're wondering if you'd take the level 1, that would be interesting. And you may still want to do it actually, again, just to check that your basic knowledge is there. But certainly if you're a facilitator, but you're relatively new to it, there's no great harm in doing level 1. And it'll give you a flavor of what the online exam is like for level 2 as well. Because the content of that is much more in depth. So you give you some confidence from it.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. Johan put in the chat, he says, well done for all of us, that these initiatives are so needed. So, Johan, thank you so much. Thank you for that sentiment. I'll speak for myself. I think I can speak for all of us. Our technical hearts and souls are in this because we do feel that it's just so necessary to promulgate the proper application of reliability-centered maintenance. So it was our sincere delight to be here today. We will most certainly be back live again because we've got some other questions in the chat that we didn't get to today, but we will for sure be back. So unless you guys have anything else, we'll sign off for now, but stay tuned. We'll send out some notices and we'll definitely be back with you live again.
See you soon. See you all soon.
Cheerio.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. See you next time.
Hasta luego. Hasta luego, amigos. Au revoir.